the second part of working with standard equations. And that's just where they're going to actually give us the equation. They're not going to give us a story problem to work with. And they're going to ask us to graph that equation. So the standard form of a linear equation is where we've got x's and y's on one side, and then we have an answer on the other side. And in this case, it's where a and b in our equation that's sitting up here is not going to be 0. So in other words, these will never be 0. Okay, that's what a standard equation is going to be. So our first step is not really a new step. It's something that we've been doing. We've done this in probably 2 or 3 different lessons. And that's where we're going to work to solve for y. So we're going to work to get y by itself. So our first step is, well, if I want this y to stay here, I have to get rid of anything that is on the same side of the equal sign by doing the opposite. So right now I have a minus 2x. We're going to say plus 2x. Okay, so once again, this isn't new. This part isn't new. Okay, so then our next step is to get that 3 away from the y. So right now it's 3 times y, so we're going to divide by 3 to get rid of it. Divide by 3, divide by 3. Okay, so this is what I have. Y equals negative 6 over 3 plus 2 over 3 with my x back here. So here's the part where it's important to understand. What's my slope and what's my y-intercept? Remember, our slope is always next to the x. Okay, if we notice, I know this blends in kind of a little bit here, but our slope is this m, and it's sitting right next to the x. And take note, when I had to do some shifting there, my slope is not in that second position. So I'm actually going to go through and rewrite my equation. Could I graph it without rewriting it? Now that everything's on one side of the equal sign, yes, I could, but I'm more comfortable with seeing it in the form that I'm used to having it. So if I rewrite this, we have y equals 2 over 3x, and that was positive, so I don't have to put a symbol in front. And then I'm going to reduce this down. What would that reduce down to? Well, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and we have a negative sign, so it's going to be minus 2. There's my y-intercept. Remember, our y-intercept will always be an integer, so we shouldn't have fractions or decimal numbers. So now I can go through and graph this out. So I'm going to go to negative 2 and put my dot, and then follow my slope. My slope is a positive, so I'm going to go up 2, 1, 2, and to the right 3, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my line through that. So the stuff that we're doing today is really just combining previously learned lessons. It's not a whole lot of new. It's just combining previously learned things and understanding why would we ever have a standard equation? Well, because it's setting up a scenario, a real world scenario where we could go through and kind of figure out, you know, from looking at a line, maybe some of the different scenarios that we don't want to have to necessarily write out. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice another one of these. So the first step is to work to get that y by itself. Okay, so we'll start with one that's kind of easy here. So right now I have x plus y equals negative 2. So we want to get y by itself. I'm going to leave this one here. So we would do minus an x, minus an x. So if we rewrite it, we've got y equals, I want to shift my x up here. So it had a minus sign in front of it. So minus, that's a 1x. And then we still have a minus sign in front of our 2, so minus 2. Okay, so remember, when you reorganize the back half of your equation, you have to keep whatever symbol is in front of the number with it. Or in this case, that was in front of our x, that negative had to stay with the x. Okay, so now if I graph it, well, y-intercept is where we start, so we're going to go to negative 2. And then our slope is negative 1, and that would be over 1. So down 1 to the right 1. And then we would draw our line through that. Oops. So there's our slope of our line, which should extend all the way through. Okay? Let's try this one. We've got 2x plus y equals 5. So we want to get it to say y equals. First step, get rid of anything that's not directly attached to the y. So that has to stay, so we're going to get rid of this 2x. Right now it's a positive 2x, minus 2x, minus 2x. Okay, so now we have y equals 5 minus 2x. I don't have to do any dividing because y is already by itself, but I am going to rewrite it into the format that I'm used to seeing, and that is to have the x first. So I have to keep this negative with that 2, so negative 2x, and this is a positive 5, so plus 5. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and now graph it. So we go to positive 5, put our dot, and then our slope is negative 2, which that's 2 over 1. So down 2 to the right 1. Down 2 to the right 1. So here's our line. And I'm just going to do the dots on this one because it's easier for me on my smartboard than to have to move my line. So that's what my line should look like, only of course I would use a straight edge to complete it out. Okay. So like I said,